You know, usually when a colleague retires, there's this whole expectation of a celebration. Like you get the nice goodbye party, maybe a sheet cake in the break room.
Yeah, a signed card going around the office.
Exactly, a signed card. Everyone wishes them well in their next chapter, and it's all very nice.
It's treated as a totally natural transition, just
Yeah.
another normal phase in the everyday business life cycle.
Right. But then you step into the world of heavy industry, and suddenly that sheet cake looks a lot more like a ticking time bomb.
Oh, absolutely.
Because in an oil refinery or like a manufacturing plant, a master technician retiring isn't just a heartfelt farewell, it is an absolute operational crisis.
It really is. I mean, it is the literal definition of institutional amnesia. The exact moment they walk out the door, all of that unwritten, hard-earned intuition just walks out with them.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to explore this really fascinating July 2026 press release and a white paper excerpt from a company called EON AI Ventures.
Yeah, their approach to this is quite striking.
It is. They are attempting to digitize human expertise before this entire generation of veteran workers retires. And they have a very specific, honestly kind of chilling term for what happens when those experts leave. They call it uncontrolled data deletion.
Uncontrolled data deletion. I mean, just think about the weight of that phrase for a plant manager.
It sounds like a tech disaster.
Right, because we protect our financial databases, our customer records, our logistics software with multiple layers of redundancy and cloud backups.
Yeah, exactly.
If an IT director accidentally deleted 40 years of proprietary company data, it'd be a board-level catastrophe. People would be fired instantly.
Heads would roll.
But the actual physical know-how locked inside a master technician's head, we let it vanish the moment they clock out for the last time.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more, because to understand why Eon is pushing so hard to solve this, and they call their concept work intelligence. By the way, we have to look at the staggering cost of this amnesia.
Yes, the stakes here are incredibly high.
Yeah. We are talking about what they outline as the trillion-dollar gap. And this gap, it isn't just measured in lost profits, it's measured in human lives.
The safety statistics they highlight in the sources are just sobering. In the United States alone, oil and gas extraction accidents kill a worker roughly twice a week.
God, twice a week.
And if we zoom out to the global stage, workplace accidents across heavy industries claim the lives of about 1,000 workers every single day.
Wait, 1,000 workers daily? That is a staggering number.
A massive portion of that human cost comes down to the gap between what the collective industry knows about operating safely and what the specific person turning the wrench on that given day actually understands about the machine right in front of them.
Let's put that into perspective for you listening. Imagine losing the only master mechanic who knows the subtle quirks of keeping a specific commercial airplane flying.
Okay, that's a good analogy.
Right, so if that mechanic retires, the airline might have to ground a flight, maybe refund some tickets, take a small PR hit. But in heavy industry, if you lose the only person who truly understands the pressure system on an offshore rig, the platform literally blows up.
Exactly. The consequences are existential.
Or at the very least, it bleeds tens of millions of dollars while a crew just stands around looking at a broken compressor they don't know how to fix.
Which brings us to the financial side of that trillion-dollar gap.
Mm-hmm.
The average offshore oil platform loses about 27 days a year to unplanned downtime.
Almost a full month.
A full month. And that downtime costs roughly $38 million per platform annually. And for the worst performers, you are approaching $88 million in losses.
Just from things breaking down unexpectedly.
Right. Globally, across all these sectors, unplanned downtime destroys an estimated $1.5 trillion a year. That's 11% of total turnover just evaporating because the right person wasn't there to prevent a breakdown.
Okay, but I have to push back on the premise here just a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
If a company is bleeding $38 million a year because of a skills gap, why can't they just train new people the old-fashioned way? You hire a sharp 22-year-old, you pair them with a 60-year-old veteran for an apprenticeship, and you just wait for the knowledge to transfer over time.
Well, that is exactly how the industry operated for the last 30 years.
Right. It worked before.
It did. Dan Lajerskar, the founder and chairman of EON AI Ventures, points out that companies just tried to, quote, hire experience. They would recruit their way out of the problem, but that well has run completely dry.
Because of the demographic cliff, I'm guessing?
Precisely. The veteran workforce is aging out en masse. The math simply doesn't work anymore. You don't have enough senior people left to shadow.
Oh, wow.
And you certainly don't have 5 years to wait for a new hire to get up to speed. Lejerskar argues you can no longer recruit expertise. You actually have to manufacture it.
Manufacture expertise. That's a wild concept.
It is. Furthermore, he points out there's a massive chasm between baseline training and hard-earned intuition.
What do you mean by that distinction exactly? Like training versus intuition?
Well, baseline training is reading a manual. It tells you the sequence of steps. Step A, then step B.
Okay.
Intuition is feeling a subtle vibration in the floorboards and knowing, without even looking, that a specific pressure valve is about to fail.
Right, the stuff you can't really write down.
Exactly. You can't just hand a new hire a 3-ring binder and expect them to absorb 30 years of muscle memory, sensory awareness, and environmental context.
Okay, so if losing this intuition is costing the global economy $1.5 trillion annually, why hasn't Silicon Valley built an app to fix this yet? I mean, we have enterprise software that tracks absolutely everything else in a business.
And that is exactly the blind spot EON is targeting. What's fascinating here is how they draw a sharp contrast between how businesses track their physical things versus how they track human competence.
Okay.
Silicon Valley has given us incredible systems of record for assets, but zero systems of record for knowledge. So EON is proposing work intelligence as the 4th system of record.
Okay, let's break that down so you can see the comparison. Walk us through the first 3 systems that companies already rely on.
Sure. First, we have ERP, or Enterprise Resource Planning. That system tracks what a company actually owns, the physical inventory, the raw materials, financial assets.
Intangible stuff.
Right. Second is CRM, Customer Relationship Management. That maps out who the company sells to, tracking pipelines and client history.
And the third is PLM, Product Lifecycle Management, tracking what the company actually builds and designs over time.
Exactly. But look at what is missing from that trio. None of those systems capture what a company's people actually know how to do.
Right.
A modern refinery uses an ERP to track every single spare titanium bolt in a warehouse with barcode precision. But the knowledge of how to install that specific bolt under intense pressure, in the rain, at 2 in the morning, that is entirely unmapped.
So the stated goal of this 4th system, this work intelligence, is to bridge that gap. EON wants a 3-week trained new hire to perform with the capability of a 5-year veteran.
Yeah.
And simultaneously, they want the knowledge of a retiring 30-year expert to become a permanent, searchable organizational asset.
That's the holy grail, yeah.
But I need some clarification here. Let's say that an ERP does track the physical parts of a massive industrial valve. Why can't the company just, upload a highly detailed PDF manual on how to fix it to a server? Why do we need an entirely new, complex system of record just for that?
Well, the limitation of a PDF manual comes down to the difference between static documentation and dynamic capability. Manuals assume a perfect world.
Right.
They assume the equipment looks exactly like the crisp, clean diagram, that the lighting is perfect, and that everything goes according to plan.
Which it never does on an oil rig.
Never. Human work in heavy industry is totally chaotic. A PDF on an iPad doesn't tell you how much torque to apply to a heavily rusted bolt when you're wearing thick safety gloves.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Documenting a process is easy. Transferring the physical capability to execute that process safely under pressure is an entirely different technological challenge.
And seeing why static PDFs fail naturally brings us to the modern tech instinct, which is just feed all those manuals into an AI chatbot.
Right. That is everyone's immediate reaction today. If the manual is too dense to search, let a large language model read it and summarize it for the worker.
But Lejerskar has a quote in this release that completely shuts down that approach. He says, quote, "A large language model can describe a valve. It can't run the plant."
Which introduces their core technological shift. They call it physical AI.
Physical AI.
They aren't just bolting ChatGPT onto a corporate document library. EON is fusing language models with a working mathematical model of real-world physics. The system doesn't just read words about a machine. It understands the spatial and physical reality of the machine itself.
The phrase they use in the white paper is fascinating. They say physics doesn't hallucinate.
That is the key phrase, yes.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let me give you an analogy to separate standard text AI from this physical AI. Think about the difference between an old-school, text-based adventure game versus a high-end, modern video game running a full physics engine.
Okay, I like where this is going.
In the text game, you type "turn the wrench," and the game just prints back, You turn the wrench, the pipe is fixed. It's just text predicting the next logical text.
Right, a statistical guess based on language pattern.
Exactly. But in a modern physics engine, the game actually understands gravity, material strength, thermodynamics. If you tell the game to turn the wrench too hard, the simulated metal actually shears. The pipe bursts and simulated oil sprays everywhere.
It reacts like the real world.
The physics engine enforces the unbreakable laws of reality.
And the stakes of that difference are monumental for industrial safety. If a standard AI hallucinates a fact in a marketing email, maybe it makes up a statistic or gets a client's name wrong, it's a mild professional embarrassment.
You send an apology email and move on.
Exactly. But if an AI hallucinates a pressure threshold on an offshore rig and tells a worker to open a valve that absolutely shouldn't be opened, that is fatal.
Yeah.
By grounding the AI in physical reality and the laws of thermodynamics, EON is moving AI from a glorified search engine into a rigorous operational safety tool.
Okay, so the technology is anchored in strict physical rules. But how does this actually play out on the ground? Like, how does this massive physics engine get into the hands of our hypothetical 22-year-old new hire on their very first day?
That is where the deployment strategy comes in.
Because the white paper details a delivery mechanism they call the intelligence flywheel.
Yes. The flywheel is designed so that every step compounds the value of the next one. It begins with a product called Genesis.
Okay, Genesis.
Genesis takes those static standard operating procedures, those useless PDFs we mentioned earlier, and fundamentally transforms them into living, hands-on simulators.
So the worker actually practices the dangerous job in a safe digital simulation first, building muscle memory before they ever touch real steel.
That's the first step, exactly. Then comes Field IQ. This takes the capability out of the classroom and onto the actual site.
How does that work?
It delivers the procedural steps via augmented reality right at the exact moment of work. The worker is looking at the physical valve, and the AR overlays the instructions, the physical tolerances, and the safety warnings right onto their field of vision.
Oh, wow. And this leads to the third component, Assess IQ, which verifies the worker's competency before they are allowed to proceed. The AI actually watches them in the simulation or via AR and confirms they know what they are doing.
Yes, it validates the skill.
But I have to stop here and push back on the workplace dynamics of this. Doesn't Assess IQ introduce massive friction?
In what way?
Well, imagine you are a 20-year veteran mechanic. You walk up to a compressor you've fixed 100 times, and an AI overlord on your headset demands you prove your competency before it lets you touch the wrench. That sounds incredibly frustrating, maybe even a little insulting.
It definitely introduces a completely new dynamic regarding workplace trust and autonomy, I'll give you that. But if we connect this back to those thousands of daily fatalities we discussed, it completely reframes the necessity.
Okay, fair point.
Heavy industry has historically relied on assumed competence. You passed a multiple-choice test 3 years ago, so we assume you are still competent to perform this highly dangerous task today.
Right, the certificate on the wall says you know how to do it.
But Assess IQ shifts the paradigm to verified competence. It requires evidence over assumption. You have to demonstrate the physical steps safely in the augmented environment. It isn't about micromanaging a veteran's ego. It is about preventing that one day where they are fatigued, maybe they skip a critical safety check, and a catastrophic error occurs.
And I suppose if a veteran does have a better, safer way of doing things, the system actually captures that too, right? Because the fourth step of the flywheel is compound IQ.
That is the real genius of the flywheel. Compound IQ feeds every single interaction back into the central system. So if that 20-year veteran encounters a rare equipment quirk or naturally angles a tool in a way that is vastly more efficient, the AI observes that. It learns from the human.
Oh, that's wild. So the institutional knowledge actually accumulates instead of walking out the door at retirement.
Exactly. It creates a continuous loop of optimization. The system trains the worker navigates the messy reality of the field, and then the system learns from the worker's real-time adjustments. That is how you plug that $1.5 trillion knowledge drain.
There's one final piece to this flywheel called EON Universal. This is basically how they populate the system to begin with. It converts standard field photographs into operable digital twins.
Yes, which is a massive time saver.
Right. You take a picture of a rusted asset out in the elements, and it instantly becomes a digital model inside the physics engine, complete with live engineering attributes.
It's a massive logistical undertaking, though, to orchestrate all these different elements, the simulators, the AR, the safety gates, the data feedback loops.
Yeah, how is this not just complete technological chaos behind the scenes?
Well, EON manages this through a deeply structured backend. The entire platform runs on an operating system called EON Conductor.
Okay.
But more importantly, every single action is gated for trust and safety by a layer called EON Verdict. Think of Verdict as the ultimate safety bouncer. It ensures no augmented instruction violates physics or safety protocols before it reaches the worker.
Okay.
And finally, all the data and routing are governed by EON Switchboard, which basically acts as the traffic cop for the entire enterprise.
And EON AI Ventures is not treating this as some distant theoretical white paper concept. They are aggressively pushing this to market. They're taking this work intelligence category on a massive world tour in 2026, targeting heavy industry hubs across the Gulf, India, and Asia.
It is also crucial to note that they are not some new startup just riding the current AI hype cycle.
Right, they've been around.
The framework mentions that this new physical AI approach is built on a 25-year foundation of immersive learning technology that they have already deployed in over 80 countries. They have been tackling the spatial computing side of this for decades.
This has been an incredibly dense journey through heavy industry, but let's zoom out for a second and connect this core philosophy back to you and your everyday working life.
It's more relevant than people think.
Definitely. Even if you sit at a desk sending emails rather than standing on an offshore oil rig in the freezing rain, just look around your office. Who holds the tribal knowledge in your department?
There's always someone.
Always. Who is the one person everyone quietly goes to when the proprietary legacy software crashes, or when a very specific, demanding client needs handling? Think about what happens to your team's workflow if your own 20-year veteran retires tomorrow.
It's the same problem, just a different scale.
Exactly. The concept of treating human capability as a trackable, verifiable system of record is coming to every industry, not just oil and gas.
And that impending shift leaves us with a truly profound implication to consider.
What's that?
Well, if EON's vision comes to pass, if an organization can use AI-driven physics and augmented reality to make a 3-week hire perform identically to a 5-year veteran, what happens to the intrinsic value of human experience?
Oh, wow. That is a heavy question.
Because for generations, a worker's leverage was the unique, accumulated knowledge inside their head. If expertise becomes a manufactured software asset owned entirely by the company, rather than a human trait owned by the worker, does the seasoned veteran lose their career leverage forever?
That is definitely something to mull over. Thank you for joining us as we explored this massive shift in how we value and capture human knowledge. We will catch you on the next deep dive.